computer clones attack that base.
Robots, fan out. It's time to put an end to this mess.
It's a good thing I've conjured up some new technology of my own.
Fine, I'll do it myself. I found you, Lord Krakenskull. Lord Krakenskull, who have you kidnapped this time?
You can save her or stop my evil plan.
Save who?
I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been something you said. I just died in your arms tonight.
Well, what'll it be? As I thought.
Transfer forbidden power!
He seems to have vanished back into the time vortex. Did you get a chance to look at his plans? I think he's going back to the Gilded Age to change some of the inventions, but I don't know why that's important. I think I know why he's targeting those places. Let's go back to the lab. Computer, did you pick up any temporal traces of Lord Krakenskull's whereabouts?
Oh, Clay, is that you? Oh my, looking good, I must say. You've returned home early. And with a lovely lady. So, may I take this to see that you've defeated Lord Krakenskull once and for all?
Unfortunately not, but my new friend here says she got a glimpse at his evil plans.
Ah, that's too bad in that case. I haven't gotten to see any temporal traces of him. But, you said he was going to the Gilded Age, right?
Yeah, that's right. Why do you ask?
Well, my theory is that if he's going to the Gilded Age, he would mess with the most important part of it, the technology and innovations of the Gilded Age. In fact, I can think of a bunch just off the top of my head. Let's see, I'll have to run some calculations on this, but I believe that we can narrow down the list to just a few technology that Lord Krakenskull would want to change the past. Because if he changes the past, he changes everything.
Okay, Clay, I've dug up this research video on just an overview of the Gilded Age. I think that you might have made this a long time ago, because this isn't the first time that Lord Krakenskull's messed with history. Well, let's give it a watch, and while we're watching, I'll compile my research. Alright, let's go.
The period of 1870 to 1920, featuring what is sometimes referred to as the Second Industrial Revolution, was a time of unprecedented growth, development, and social tension. With the emphasis on industry at the time, innovation and inventions occurred at a rapid pace, driving both positive and negative social changes. As people began migrating towards dense cities, interconnection and communication were forced to increase. However, some innovations of this period led to political corruption that prevented social progress. For this reason, the period was known as the Gilded Age, referencing the golden appearance of the progress in the age that hid the simultaneous growth of discrimination and corruption. Many of the inventions of the Gilded Age improved quality of life for the average American by increasing communication, improving the infrastructure of industries, and providing easily accessible national transportation. As a result, Inventions and innovations, for the most part, led to dramatic social progress. The following story is a recollection of battles that nearly turned the tide of the Gilded Age.
Ah, thanks for the intro, Clay. Although you did sound a bit lackluster in that video. It's almost as if you were making it for a history project really late the night before. Nah, that can't be it. I don't even know what I'm saying. What even is a history project? I'm a robot. Okay, let's go moving on to my research. Here we go.
Clay, I finished my preliminary research on the innovations of the Gilded Age, and there's a lot more important ones than I would have thought. I know now for sure why Lord Krakenskull is targeting these. Well, let's get started. Here's the first one up, the airplane. Throughout the 19th century, scientists worldwide began researching and developing the first non-powered aircraft. Featuring gliders and primitive motorless planes, these aircraft allowed temporary flight while using the emerging laws of aerodynamics. In 1903, the first true powered airplane was invented, the Wright Flyer. The American Wright brothers had invented a powerful, maneuverable, heavier-than-air, piloted aircraft that would revolutionize the future of worldwide transportation. And I'm sure you've all heard about this. It used an internal combustion engine much like that created in the development of automobiles in decades prior, but was created by the Wright brothers themselves. In fact, until the invention of jet propulsion, nearly all aircraft would use similar internal combustion engines. Man, these brothers truly were pioneers in what they did. In 1905, the Wright brothers made their first marketable powered plane for sale, and commercial flight services began as early as 1914, although, to be fair, they were scarce and offered few flights. This innovation was made possible through the innovative climate during the Gilded Age, which saw rapid industrial progress and a series of energy-based developments, such as the internal combustion engine, that were necessary in producing plane thrust. The plane offered a huge improvement on social progress through increased connection and communication, although its effects would not be felt until later in the 20th century. If I were Lord Krakenskull, I'd definitely target the Wright brothers. In fact, without them, it's doubtful that we would even be here today. Well, next moving on to the radio. The invention of the radio in 1901 immensely advanced communication technology, and it would eventually be integrated into nearly every home in America due to its powerful ability to provide entertainment and information worldwide. Research into the manner in which radio waves are transmitted, carried, and received was prevalent during the 1800s, especially as scientists discovered the ability to receive these waves at different frequencies. In 1888, Heinrich Hertz published the results of his experiments in which he successfully transmitted radio waves through the air, one of the first instances of non-conductive wireless communication. The Italian Guglielmo Marconi developed the first modern transatlantic radio in 1901. He'd established a company that broadcasted signals that could be received from faraway distances, and in 1906, the world's first entertainment and music broadcast was made in Massachusetts. Although many radio advancements were made outside of the US, we quickly adopted the innovation for long-distance government communication and civilian transmission of information. Because of its affordability, American families immediately set out to purchase the new invention, and by 1923, more than half of the entire United States had a radio. Wow, that's a lot. The adoption of the radio in the US was fundamentally dependent on the Gilded Age because of the increasing proximity of citizens and ducks and political chaos led by the free market movement of social Darwinists. The government failed to regulate radio waves, so broadcasting stations sprouted up everywhere, competing for airtime and sometimes even overlapping each other. The radio raised the quality of life for the average American during the Gilded Age and beyond by allowing easy access to entertainment, of knowledge and future interconnection of the society, which led to great social progress. Well, moving on, the next invention was the diesel engine and automobile. Bringing the automobile to the American middle class was basically a two-part process. It relied on first the development of the diesel internal combustion engine, and then the assembly line that allowed efficient automobile construction. Various scientists experimented with internal combustion engines during the 19th century, each of which utilized a different design, but all of which relied on the same basic principles. A fuel and oxidizer would be heated in a closed area, which would burn the fuel and release energy and pressure that could be used to power pistons or rotors. These engines were applied to automobiles among other modes of transport to spin the wheel and offer fast, long-distance travel. American Adolphus Busch,
a wealthy brewery company president and philanthropist, bought the rights to the diesel engine from Rudolph in 1897 and further developed it. In 1911, he created the Diesel Engine Company, which would provide the engines to automobile and transportation companies nationally. The automobile, though, had been developing throughout the world simultaneously, utilizing other versions of the combustion engine. In 1901, Henry Ford launched his own car manufacturing company, which would later be known as the Henry Ford Company, and you know the rest. Between 1902 and 1908, there were many different models of Ford cars that were pretty expensive, but finally, in 1913, Ford made the assembly line, which everyone knows about, that reorganized vehicle construction very efficiently, and the company was able to construct cars at a much faster pace, allowing them to drop their prices and making automobiles available to the middle class. The Gilded Age was key in the innovations of both the internal combustion engine and the automobile because of the massive wealth gap present at the time. In order to sell the product on a large scale, engines and automobile constructors had to find a way to drop their prices and make them appealing to the middle class. These conditions shaped the way the car industry would operate for the next century. Rather than being luxurious, elite modes of transport, they became accessible and common tools. Now, this would definitely be a big change Lord Krakenskull might make. I mean, without the car, we wouldn't have developed the low hovercraft, the spaceship, and even our portal technology today. In fact, I'm a computer. I don't even know if I would have been invented. Oh dear. Is my hand fading already? Oh, well, moving on quickly. Next is social Darwinism. The emergence of social Darwinism in the 19th and 20th centuries was one of the few innovations that was destructive to social progress. Stemming from Charles Darwin's publication on the origin of species in 1859 that proposed a theory of evolution, this idea applied to the concepts of natural selection and survival of the fittest to social class. The rich claimed the poor were unfittest, and their lack of wealth was their own fault. That's not nice. They used this to justify the huge wealth gap and to stop any legislation that would aid the impoverished. This discrimination arose because of the huge distinctions during the Gilded Age, and would unfortunately extend these very distinctions. It wasn't until the late 20th century that these ideas were disproved and rejected, but progress and productivity were ultimately restricted as a result of these ideas. Nevertheless, this was a huge part of our history, no matter how bad it was, and without making these mistakes, we might never have learned from them, making it a prime target for Lord Krakenskull. The explosive economic progress of the Gilded Age and resulting wealth would be more focused towards the rich with none distributed to the poor, leading to social chaos and disorder that ultimately delayed social progress. Ooh, next up is a biggie, the railroad. It's what made the Second Industrial Revolution possible. So basically, miles of railroads in the US tripled between 1860 to 1880, and by 1920 they tripled again. This allowed a national market for goods, which was key in distributing many of the other innovations of the Gilded Age that we've been talking about. In fact, the railroad company has shaped our time zones even. 4 different time zones were actually created by the railroad company. Next up, we've got the skyscraper. The first skyscrapers basically were buildings that were only 10 to 20 stories tall, but were remarkably tall for the time. The Chicago Home Insurance Building considered the first skyscraper, although it didn't really utilize modern technologies. George A. Fuller, however, innovated the first modern architecturally unique skyscraper in 1885, which used steel beams to support its weight rather than the outside walls. This steel cage skeleton was fundamental to creating buildings that were taller, and without this idea, buildings would not be strong and durable enough to support additional stories. And this revolutionized the development of cities, skyrocketing our progress and allowing the industries emerging in the Gilded Age to develop and grow without needing to take up more space. Instead, they could just go straight up. Cities could incorporate more and more buildings and industries, which increased interconnection and allowed the easy spread of ideas. And this was really helpful in the social growth of communities during the Gilded Age. And this was a huge factor to social progress because it allowed communities to grow together and industries to connect. On to seemingly the most important invention of all, the light bulb. It was invented by Thomas Edison, as most people know, although it would be researched and improved by other scientists. Edison struggled in finding a good fuel source, and he needed to find a fuel that would oxidize slowly and have a really high melting point, so it would give off light without melting away. And he ended up making carbon filaments because it had the highest melting point of any element at the time. Since he needed a practical lighting system, he also made electric generators and cables that were implemented quickly in factories and homes. The light bulb was probably one of the most influential inventions of the Gilded Age because it was so useful in the workplace and at home. They were really affordable and not limited to the rich, just like cars, and they soon replaced lamps and candles for lighting in American homes. They allowed factories in the Industrial Revolution to run at night, and the light bulb emerged in the Gilded Age because as society shifted from an agricultural to industrial-based economy, the need for lighting became increasingly prevalent. It helped provide national industrial productivity, which helped increase the rate of innovation in manufacturing, and this in turn benefited the American citizen and helped promote social progress.
Whew, alright, well, in the time it's taken for me to explain to you all that, my temporal locator has in the time it's taken for me to locate... Well, good news. In the time it's taken for me to run through all of the possible locations that Lord Krakenskull might be attacking, we've narrowed down the temporal device to messing with one invention, the light bulb. Now I suggest that you suit up and go take down Lord Krakenskull. And oh, I'm coming with you. I've been training for this. Whoa!
There's a million heroes, but I'm the best of them all, yeah. Who has the coolest gadgets? Who has the tricked out ride? Who has the sickest backflips?
Over there in the left field corner is Christopher Lee, the legendary boxer. When he's stuck up against the wall and doesn't know what to do, all he has to do is think, float like a butterfly, and sting like a bee buzz.
Computer, are you okay?
Okay. Well, as you can see, sir, I've been training for this. Now please, I'd like to come along and defeat Lord Krakenskull with you. It's time to generate a portal.
No, I'm not risking losing any more computers to that monster.
What? Are you kidding me? All that training montage for nothing? Ah, forget it, I quit.
Okay, let's go. I don't see him. Oh, there he is.
Come on, Chris. Die, light bulb! Die! It's you. What do you want?
You do realize that shooting electricity at a light bulb is not going to kill it.
The what? Works on everything else, including you! Yeah! Yeah! Too late, Clay Morrington. No!
I've beaten you.
You haven't met my master yet.
Who's your master?
Hey, buddy. Does it know? Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Does it know? Hey, buddy. Does it know? Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.